Welcome back to our continuing coverage. State of War Results Day across 4 states and a union territory of the country, accounting for nearly a fifth of India's population. We will know who's forming the next governments in Kerala, Tamil Nadu, Puducherry, West Bengal and Assam. Counting to begin in about 15 minutes from now. And as our correspondents have traversed the country, we will have every little detail for you at this moment. Manisha Priyam, we spoke about the national significance of this election today. Do you believe that whatever happens today, the narrative will change come tomorrow? Because COVID remains the biggest crisis facing all governments across the country, whether state or center. Does the narrative change tomorrow depending on what happens today?
The narrative is already changed. And in the face of a tragedy towards the worst, COVID is already the biggest tragedy, given the numbers and the scale and the intensity with which it is happening in India. At this point of time, this is indeed the world's biggest tragedy. And yes, indeed, most state governments and the national government have singularly failed in either being able to anticipate this tragedy or being able to save human lives. Remember, Rajdeep, we are gathered here today to discuss an election that builds the compact between people and states. And the only reason why people put a state to control themselves is because the right to life is saved more by the state than by ordinary individuals themselves. So that narrative, very, very important, very significant. We can also see that in the face of this tragedy, much of India had been talking about one country, one nation, one vote, one GST. But today we are missing in that action. Post this election, the narrative will indeed compare the southern state of Kerala, for example, having fared better with at least the management of it, state level response, even as the COVID tragedy hit them hard early enough amongst all Indian states, continues to rage in that state, but they've been able to manage it at their level. In West Bengal, in Uttar Pradesh, the larger states north of the Vindhyas, we do not know, in Bihar as well, how the COVID management is going to pan out. The institutional structure and developmentalism have lagged behind in northern India, and we will see in the months to come much of the difference in development policy and politics between the Dravidian state and the left-ruled state of Kerala and the North Indian states, where we've had many flavors of politics, still no institutionalism of development, although elections have been won in the last 2 decades and lost in the name of Vikas and in the name of development. The question today is, has development politics given the right to life to the world's poorest?
I think that's an important point you make, because remember, the next round of elections in 2022 will be across North India. There will be Uttar Pradesh most significantly, but there's also Punjab and Uttarakhand that go to polls between January and April next year.
But this is not correct, Rajdeep. It also depends on what strain of the virus that particular state is dealing with.
But how do you deal with it is also important. You don't file FIRs against hospitals or against citizens who are putting out SOSs on social media. I think it's the